Okay, good afternoon. Nice lights. So what are we going to talk about today? Personal behavioral programs. So this kind of talks into, puts a link between identity, governance, risk, and insider threat. So think of insider threat, and that's kind of where all this is coming from. Okay, so who am I? Jerry Chapman. I'm a delivery lead at Optiv. The last number of years, I've spent a lot of time around IAM projects, doing a lot with IAM. In the last year and a half, I've really focused around identity-centric security. So that's been a really big focus of what we're doing, insider threats, things like zero trust identity. It's a key phrase I just came up with. So, and I spent a lot of time around that. So insider threat is a huge topic, at least right now. The other thing about, something about this presentation is not about process. This presentation is not about, hey, go do this tomorrow. This presentation is a concept. It's really here to begin conversations around what should we be doing in addition to all the technology type stuff that we're doing. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through this. So we have all these tools, right? We have all these technology tools. We have security tools. We have identity tools. We're able to know what people are doing inside an organization from 8 to 5 every day. We know exactly what's going on for the most part. And we've got integrations. Shameless plug, master sessions, Wednesday. We're talk about those integrations. Oops, didn't want to do that. Okay, back, sorry. Shameless plug for the master sessions. But the point is, we know about these integrations. We know what's going on in the workplace. We know what's happening with all of these people. What we don't know is what's going on outside the environment outside of the 8 to 5 environment. So this is a journey, right? So we're building all these tools. We spend time here, okay? We spend time on infrastructure, we spend time on application, we spend time around data. And all that tool or the big diagram up there, those again are those integrations that we keep talking about. Spend a lot of time there and a lot of effort and a lot of money spent around that. Where we don't spend the time is personal risk, right? How are we looking at the individuals responsible for some of that, for what's going on with an organization? Michael, was that his name? In Office Space? Can't remember his name, but it's not that I'm lazy. It's just he doesn't care. What does that mean? Well, it's just, he doesn't have the same vested interest that your CEO has in an organization, your CFO. It's just an employee who's like, yeah, I'm just working here. I don't care. I'm not lazy. So a few things about a traditional personal risk program. So if you've got a traditional program, things like controls for job rotation policies. They're strictly enforced, reviewed, updated as the risk or the landscape changes, the threat landscape changes. Do we do that all the time? No, we don't do that all the time. Once someone is vetted, so you're hired into an organization, we run some sort of audit. We do a credit background check. We do some initial checks. But as things keep changing, do we continue that? Not so much, right? Enterprise risk assessment processes will always pick up changes in individual groups and values. Not so much. So you're starting to see a trend, right? Training and awareness building. You know, we keep training. We do education programs. We want to instill a security culture. We keep doing that, but does that fix the problems? Not so much. So what do? Again, today we talk about all of the security threats. We talk about working through some of these issues. So what we do today is we are going to bring together the personal risk assessment with some of the technology. So the first thing you do in doing an evaluation of a personal risk assessment is you need to evaluate the value of the information. First thing you do, classify your data. Come up with a data classification. What's sensitive, what's not sensitive. Think about your public data. Think about what's highly critical. Then determine the risk. You may have done this already, and that's okay, but determine the risk to your material impact and material impact to your business. Determine what is the most critical elements within your organization. And then finally, assess the potential loss. Assess what can happen if this information is gone, or if this information is leaked, or if someone within the organization lets this out. So after the value of information, how much damage can I do as an employee? NIST, the 800-53 standards define a few elements to manage this. The first thing they say you do, have a set of position classifications and definitions. What does that mean? Sensitive versus non-sensitive. Your sensitive data is really your really high-level position positional data. Excuse me, sorry, let me take a step back. So your high-level sensitive data is based on the position that you're assigned, or non-sensitive, or you're just a general employee and so forth. Then that's where you classify your key roles. So you've set your position classifications, you've gone through that process, you've defined those classifications, and then ultimately you want to classify the roles associated with them. Are they non-sensitive roles? Are they non-critical sensitive roles? Are they special sensitive roles? So these are the roles you want to go through, and now that you've classified them, you're managing them and you're defining who's in those roles. Non-sensitive roles, general staff members, your general employees, your people, maybe they're people who's doing the work. To your special sensitive C-level positions. One of the things I'm about to say may get some CFOs angry, or your CEOs or your CTOs, because they have a lot of access to information that you don't necessarily want out in the public, and so you want to know what they're doing. So the first concept around your personal behavior program, infinity background checks. What does that mean? As you go, when we hire an organization or an individual within an organization, maybe they were hired as a CFO or maybe they weren't. But as they're hired, based on that position and the position they attain, you might want to continue doing background checks. If someone's within an organization, typically within an organization you get background check when you're first hired. But if you're a CFO and you've been in there for 10 years, doing a background check is not a standard. So maybe that's something you need to start thinking about, is as projects change, more access to more resources, a background check may be there. Credit checks aren't going to be enough. You want to look at virtual and non-virtual risk indicators. Things like social media. I heard, in the last couple of days, this is scary. It is scary. But to a business owner, a board of investors, or shareholders, this isn't so scary if a CFO or a CTO or a CEO is doing stuff out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter that shouldn't be happening. So you need to assess that information. Are they doing something new? Have they started the process of downloading additional information, behavior analytics? This is where you get into. Now the technology starts to come into this. Are they downloading something different? Are they accessing an application they haven't? Or have they stopped accessing an application over the past couple of weeks because something has changed? And then you want to create, through that process, so you've done background checks, you've reviewed social media, you reviewed their behavior, both on the site and out at home. Now you want to create a risk profile associated with this. And then the important and probably the most key element to all of this is that it gets integrated into your current risk management system. Maybe it's a SIM that you're able to provide additional data into. But you want to bring this risk profile and this aggregate risk score, if you will, into your standard monitoring system so it can be aggregated across all the other systems. Again, shameless plug for the master sessions, the IDSA and some of the things we're doing there to bring aggregate risk scores together from technology. This is just another mechanism to feed into that risk score. So then we start talking about, well, how do you do all this? And I've talked about processes, and I've talked about the things you do to create this aggregate risk score. Well, what do you do with it when you have it? This is where you create something called the Insider Threat Working Group. Someone else is going to talk a little bit more about this in another session, I believe tomorrow. But the Insider Threat Working Group is part of a much bigger security model, or a maturity, I should say, a much bigger maturity model. What is this Insider Threat Group? Who needs to be in this Insider Threat Working Group? What's it designed to do? Right? So it needs to be able to have global view over the entire enterprise as to what's going on. Oops, did it again. Have global view into the full enterprise as to what's going on. So it has to be someone at your C-level executives. Maybe it's a CFO, maybe it's a CTO, but they have view into processes and data across the system. Why do they need to own it? Because they have a vested interest in this, and they have the ability to sit into some of these additional conversations where potentially they can suggest, well, you need to have this additional background check because it's a new project, because you're getting access to sensitive data. Active versus passive. These people have to be involved. These people have to understand the nature of the business, the nature of change, and be actively involved in the behavioral process and understand that these infinity background checks, the social media content that you're reviewing, all of this data needs to be actively pursued, actively used, and managed throughout the process. And then the key to success. Well, I stated this already, strong action for change. Heavily involved in the organization, at a much higher level within the organization, and have the ability to create change. Through some of the conversation I've had with people about some of this, one of the comments that's come out of this is they're watchdogs. Yes, that's true, they're watchdogs. But they're also watched by the watchdogs, because even though they are the C-level executives, or they are the higher executives within the organization, I'm proposing that even those individuals, especially those individuals based on the classification provided earlier, are the individuals that are being monitored through the working group. That was, that's what I have. Any questions, comments? Yes, sir. So what I kind of stated, the privacy issues, you'll get a lot of privacy concerns. The resistance, as I think you walked in a few minutes late, but the purpose of this is to start this dialogue, right? You want to start this dialogue. You want these people, you want people having the conversations of what's going on outside the organization. And the security officers, quite frankly, need to, what can they do to prevent having something happen before someone touches the keyboard? And that's what some of this helps prevent. Any other questions? Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.